Okay.
Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. Today, my friends, I'm delighted to welcome Helene Godin. Now, for those of you that don't know who she is, she's an incredible woman that has started an amazing bakery over in New York City, which is honestly incredible. Now, I haven't had the pleasure of tasting her amazing cakes, but I one day will. That is a promise. When I eventually get on a plane and travel over there, that would be one of my first stops. But the bakery is called By the Way Bakery, which is a pretty cool name. It was founded by Helene. She was a former lawyer turned entrepreneur, which is pretty cool. Different career change right there. But you have had a lot of buzz in regards to your bakery over the years. You founded it back in 2010. So it's a little while ago now, but it's grown enormously and it continues to grow. You've had celebrities pop by, which is Amy Schumer, Emmy Rossum as well, and so many more. So can I welcome you so much to the Storybox podcast today, Helene?
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Like I was saying to you a moment ago, when I found out about your business, what you're doing in the world, and I guess putting smiles on people's faces every single day, I had to find out who is the lady behind this. What is her story? What has she learned along the way? So I really do appreciate you making the time to be here today. My very first question for you is, what is your favorite bakery good that you enjoy making the most?
So we first have to qualify that because I don't make anything. I am sort of the wizard behind the curtain. I quit my job as a lawyer and literally taught myself how to bake. When I told my family that I was going to open a bakery, they looked at me and said, "But you don't know how to bake." And it was true, because when I first started experimenting, my kids would come running down the stairs and say, "Mom, it's bake, not broil." As the smoke alarm is going off. So I taught myself how to bake, because you can't run any business, large or small, without an understanding of all the aspects. Mm-hmm. So I spent 4 months, because we're a gluten-free, dairy-free bakery, I spent 4 months just developing the flour mix, because you can't just open a bag of gold medal flour. You have to do a blend. And I spent four months doing that based on about 6 core recipes. And I would decide, do I want to use teff flour? No, I don't like teff flour. How about millet? No, I didn't like that. How is this ratio between white rice and brown rice? Oh, that seems to work. And my method was very scientific. It was bake, bite, throw out. And I would just keep going with that. So I spent 4 months, working. We had talked earlier about lawyer's hours. I worked 7 days a week, 10, 12, 14 hours a day on this. And I came up with the recipes. And then it was also, I had to come up with a store design and a business plan. And I had to figure out where to source ingredients and all those other aspects. So I know how to make everything we do.
Wow.
But I left it to the professionals from the moment we opened the door. That said, I think my go-to is our coconut cloud cake.
Oh, I should never have asked you this question. You know why? Because it's going to make me hungry from the word go. And that's all I'm going to be thinking about is food and trying the cakes or the food the entire conversation. So I'll do my best to steer away from thinking about that. But you're like the grand wizard behind all the ideas that the bakers come and actually make. Is that correct?
Well, I'm the one who said I'm the wizard behind the curtain, but I could not do what I do without the team I have. And, I will come up with an idea, but they will also come up with ideas, and they will talk me off the ledge when I come up with something completely crazy. Or I will be the starting point, and they will then tweak and work their magic. Mm. So, I am heavily involved in the process, but it is very much a collaborative effort.
I can imagine. I want to get to what you've learned about the collaboration and building a good team in a moment, and then the backstory of how this all got started. But I went off track a little bit from my initial first question I normally ask all my guests anyway. And over the years for you, Helene, what have you learned, or what does success look like for you?
Success is an absence of the fear of failure. You cannot be afraid to fail if you hope to succeed.
I like that.
And otherwise, I never would have been able to come up with this great chocolate chip cookie because I failed 51 times. And it was, as I said, bake, bite, throw out, and start all over again. And just dig your heels in and say, I'm going to push through to see if I can figure this out. Now, there are some things that you can't figure out. So, for example, we came up with an item about 6 years ago. It was we're a kosher bakery as well, for the Jewish holidays. We came up with a particular traditional cake. And I had a new head baker who's wonderful, absolutely extraordinary. But she was, as I said, new, and she thought, no, by the time the holiday comes, we'll be able to do this. And I said, well, I'm about to print the menus and we haven't done it yet. She said, no, I think we can do this. Okay. And we couldn't. I think I issued more refunds than products sold.
Oh no.
But we weren't afraid to fail. And it didn't mean that I then closed the bakery. I learned several important lessons, and that failure was a point of growth.
So where did you specifically learn to create this mindset of failure is not a bad thing? Failure is in fact a good thing, where I'm going to learn what I need to learn in order to push me forward. Where did that start for you? I've
just always been like that. I've always been oddly driven. I tell this story. He's may not be what's well known in Australia, and in fact, he's barely known in the United States. But Harry Truman was the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I was in 5th grade, and it was Christmas break, and Harry Truman died. And he was old. He was president in the 40s. And this was 1972, I think. But Harry Truman died. It's Christmas break. What does any 5th grader do? Of course, they write a report to bring into school the first day back, whether or not it was assigned, because it wasn't. It's just, and I have a strong sense of intellectual curiosity, which is the other thing that I think any entrepreneur or successful business person has to have. You have to always be on the lookout for new ideas and new approaches. If you say, well, this is the way I'm going to do it, and it works, you may find your competitors catching up. But if you say, well, this is the way we do it today, but let's revisit it tomorrow and see if there's a way we can do it even better.
I can relate to you in the sense that more so in the last couple of years, I've noticed that I've been even more driven than what I was even when I was younger. And, I did notice when I was growing up that I was a driven individual, like with certain things. For me, I wanted to be a filmmaker. So everything I did revolved around film specifically. So I lived and breathed it, and I would just go after it. But what happened was both my film businesses failed, and I didn't actually end up going the direction that I thought I would go. I went in a completely different direction, which led me to here, which, if I didn't fail, then I wouldn't have been here. If I didn't continue on, I wouldn't have been here if I had have given up. So it's an amazing phenomenon if people actually realize that failure is in fact a good thing, and they learn from your story, Helene, and other people's story, because that comes with being in business. It's part of life in general, I think. So I appreciate that fact in your story. So for someone, just for example, that is in fact struggling to adopt this kind of mindset in their own life right now, how would you walk someone through that? What strategies or advice would you give them apart from just saying you've got to have it?
Well, I should clarify that sometimes you need to fail, right? And it's just because it didn't work, right? At a certain point, you have to let go, and part of that is reading the room, listening to those around you, whether they're your customers or just the friends and family who have agreed to test whatever it is you're making or doing.
Mm.
But I think it's just getting your head around the fact that nobody's judging you. And if they are judging you, that's okay. It has to come from within. And you have to say to yourself, well, am I afraid because of outside judgment? Or am I afraid because really, you know what, this isn't doing it for me? And they're two different things.
Definitely. What drives you even despite failures? What keeps you going during the hard times, during the hard moments?
I think we all have to learn how to make lemonade. I mean, the pandemic was a great example in that, we were on track to, I think, do 100 wedding cakes for 2020. And there were no weddings. And the emails just kept coming saying, may I have my deposit back? And we just issued each one. And it was, what are we going to do? And I did a few things. We actually took the opportunity, because we were an essential business, to expand our facility. We put in some new equipment, did some exciting things on that front. I had my decorators and my bakers bake for the camera. So we came up with a beautiful portfolio of cakes, particularly wedding cakes. The wedding cakes we didn't sell, we made anyway, and took pictures of them so that when the world reopened, we had a gorgeous collection that we could sell. And the third thing is that I used the opportunity for product development. And we came up with we tweaked, as I said, you should never rest on your laurels. You should always revisit your existing products. But we came up with a new product that was new to the bakery, but not new to me, which was a snack food, because I said, all right, we are doing great in the bakery arena. What can we do for center store? Center store is like the snack aisle. And we came up with this we took an old family favorite, a snack that my family had made as a gift item, and turned it into a viable commercial product.
Wow. This is amazing. So can you tell me, what have you learned about, even in a difficult moment such as the pandemic, about learning how to pivot into the good things and out of the challenges? What have you learned about pivoting exactly?
Well, I learned that pivoting can be really rewarding. Like, I don't know if you can, your listeners can't see it, but like, we took the opportunity to come up with this gorgeous packaging and product called Momix. And if you're afraid to pivot, you will never learn and grow. And that's a loss. I think what may spur people on is not, well, I'm afraid to move forward, but what will I lose if I don't?
So how do we, I guess with a lot of trends popping up during these days, especially in bakeries and other businesses as well in the hospitality realm, how do you remain on trend, or how do you make your own trends that stand out from the crowd?
Well, one thing we do is we stick to our core business in that we are a gluten-free, dairy-free, kosher bakery. So we're not a vegan bakery. We use eggs because we have found that for our business and the products we have, that doesn't mean you can't do outstanding vegan baked goods. You can even do outstanding gluten-free vegan baked goods. But for us, this is our lane. And we don't get distracted, and customers say, but can't you make it vegan, or can't you do sugar-free, or no, this is who we are. We are By the Way Bakery. We are gluten-free, dairy-free, kosher. And within that realm, we're eager to work with you. But we get requests, for example, for a tres leches cake. And we're like, really? So you want us to do coconut, almond, and soy? It's not going to work.
Have you ever thought about sort of adopting, whether it's vegan or sugar-free, into your current model and expanding?
We've tested it, but we realized that we're really good at what we do.
Yeah.
And it's on one hand, we're hyper specialized. On the other hand, we're broad enough. It's okay.
Mm.
And particularly we have found that with the way we do our processes, we attract an enormous number of people who are none of the above. They don't fit into any of our core buckets. And I'll give you a wonderful example, which is the Bronx Zoo. The Bronx Zoo is one of the premier zoos in the world. And they have a catering, an event area where they do high-end weddings and other events. And they came to us and said, we want you to be our wedding cake provider. And I said, that's lovely. We'll be the wedding cake provider for when someone has a food allergy or when someone's kosher. They said, no, we've had your products. We think if you will offer a tasting for our clients and present them with the products, no one will turn you down. And so far, that's been true.
Wow. So I would be remiss. Okay. So I know this has been a non-linear sort of conversation so far, but I want to go back and give my audience context before I ask any more questions revolving around leadership and business sense. So you were a lawyer and then you went into this business field. So my first question to you is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Firstly, did you always want to be a lawyer? And did you ever see yourself turn into becoming a baker, and what led you there? I know there's a couple of questions in there.
So I grew up in a family of lawyers. My father was a lawyer. My grandfather was a lawyer. And the dinner time, my father tends to monopolize the conversation. And so the dinner conversation when I was growing up was always about what he did as a lawyer. And I found it interesting. And more important, I love to write. I love to research. I love to solve problems. And so I went to college with every intention of becoming a lawyer and took every class that had "and the law" in it. English and the literature and the law, Shakespeare and the law, history and the law and the law. I took a class, the theater and the law. I can't even act. And very focusing. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I did it quite happily for 22 years. And then I just burnt out and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I quit with no plan because I was working so hard that there was no time to formulate a plan. And after 4 days, including a Saturday and a Sunday, I was going out of my mind. And I started exploring various avenues, and I don't know how, but I came up with the idea that I'd open a bakery. I basically said to myself, well, if I don't want to do I don't want to be a literary agent, or I don't want to be a PR person, because those are close enough to what I used to do. What's different? Well, food is community, and I love community, and I'm going to open a little something in my town. And I decided that I didn't want to do a restaurant because there was too many hours, too many nights. I had a family. So in short order, I came up with this wacky idea. I'd open a bakery. And I can't say that there was this natural, oh, of course, because I made cookies every weekend. No, it was just, I saw the connection because it's problem solving. At the end of the day, certainly what I do, because I have to trick rice into thinking it's wheat every morning. But at the end of the day, if you look at any situation as an opportunity to solve a problem, it becomes really interesting.
It's a mindset shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. So would you say that leaving your job and going into this current career of being a business owner, would you say that has been the biggest risk you've ever taken in your life?
No, because I've done it organically. I mean, I was fortunate because I was a successful attorney. So I wasn't going to spend my last dollar building this business, but I didn't start with an 8,000 square foot factory and 75 employees. I started with a baker and a half in a 400 square foot store, and the oven was one step above a toaster. So it's another lesson for your listeners is that you don't have to dive in. You should dive in with passion. The passion should be unbridled, but you don't have to, spend your last nickel. You don't have to give everything up and close every other possible door to start a business.
No. And that's what I've learned as well, so I think that's a good lesson for me and for my listeners as well. What would you say, staying on the subject of risk, what would you say has been the biggest risk that you've taken within your family?
Within my family, I wouldn't call it a risk, but it's a story I'm quite proud of, which is I have two wonderful sons. Who have grown to be exceptional men. And my older son, Alex, was always out of the box, totally out of the box. And he came to me when he was in 8th grade. And he said, Mom, I'm not going to go to college. Now, I went to a prestigious university and a top 10 law school. My husband, who I met at said prestigious university, went to a top 2 business school. And so it's very hard when your child, who is really smart, says, I'm not going to go to college because that's the traditional track. Nevertheless, I didn't miss a beat. I said, okay, so you understand that you're very fortunate and that your family will pay for school. That's 4 years on the campus of your choice. Who doesn't want to do that? Debt-free. And he said, no, not for me. He said, Bill Gates didn't go to college. Steve Jobs didn't go to college. They didn't finish. Larry Ellison didn't finish. I'm not even going to start. And I said, okay, but that means when you finish high school, you're on your own. I mean, we will love you, but you have to support yourself. He said, all right, I'll take that bet. And I said, and here's the other thing. My job as a parent is to give you options. So I can't have it that at the end of your senior year of high school, you say, I want to go to college and now I don't have the grades. I don't have anything. And I said, so you have to act like you're going to college in that you must always do your homework. You must always go to class. You must study for every test. And you must get into a school worthy of your potential. And, you have tremendous potential, young man. And he did. He kept his word and I kept mine. And he applied to a prestigious university. Early decision. He got in and everything's electronic. He got in, he got the email, he wrote back, thanks so much. Can I defer? And they said yes. And a year later, they wrote saying, hey, time to come to college. We're holding the seat. And he said, I'm not sure I'm ready. And they said, well, we will actually make an exception because what you've done in the past year is sufficiently interesting. And so he deferred again. And then they showed up year 3, said, hey, and he said, nope, I'm not going to do it. So I think the risk was bigger for him. But often as parents, we're so invested in our kids, in addition to our own personal stories and presentations. But I said, no, you need to be who you are. And now he is running a hotline for people who are having trouble with food insecurity, helping them find pantries and places to go. And in doing that, he's building an enormous database of resources.
Wow. That's inspiring. I kind of can relate to him on a level because I went to university for 1 semester, but then I thought, no, this is not for me. I'm not. And I left and then I'm now doing this and then other jobs and it just worked out. So for me, it was a risk to leave because I thought that was going to be the path that I was meant to take. And that was going to lead me into this grand career, but alas, it didn't. But it's still okay, right? I'm still on my feet. I'm still thriving, and I'm still learning tremendous things. And I think your son, from what I'm hearing you talk about, is living in his purpose and he's happy. And I don't think he would have been happy if he was in university and if he was studying. No.
At all. And My friends all thought I was crazy. I
Mm.
mean, for years after that, they would say, so when's he going? Like, he's not. He's an adult and he's fine. He's more than fine.
Yeah. So if someone was to, like, if they're a young person at the moment and they were to say, Helene, I want to start my own business. I have this grand idea, this grand plan. I've set it all out. What advice would you give to a young person right now?
I would say make sure you really have done your homework, that you've looked at it from every conceivable angle, because you may want to start a sneaker business, but have you thought about where you're going to manufacture it and how you're going to push Nike off the shelf? Because it's doable, presumably, but what's your cap? What's your funding? What's your level of commitment? And are you the person who can really take on this challenge, or is there something else that would bring you as much joy, or almost the perceived joy you think you'd have? Because maybe the answer is you're going to open a sporting goods store, or you're going to work for a company that does what you were thinking of doing, to certainly learn. You had said in this hypothetical that they were young. Don't just start with, I'm going to do it myself on my own. First, experience it in a different way. Go do it slowly and learn in the process.
And once again, don't be afraid to fail.
and don't be afraid to fail. And don't be afraid to change your mind.
No.
It's really okay. I mean, I am an example. It was, I used to leave my house before the sun came up and come home after it came down, but I always left in designer clothes and high heels, and went to Manhattan and did my thing. And then I remember I was doing a demo at a supermarket with my back to the produce aisle, freezing. Absolutely freezing in my jeans, and it was Super Bowl Sunday, and no one wanted to try a cookie. Everybody wanted chips and dip and to get the hell home to the game. And I took a step back and I thought, is this okay? You're presenting yourself as a very different person. And I thought, yeah, it's more than okay. It's great.
So your cookie that took 51 tries to actually get to, how did you know that it was the right cookie? It was it for you.
Well,
no more tries.
Again, I read the room. I had all sorts of people who would experiment with me. And I do have, I am a foodie and I had a sense, but that doesn't mean we haven't changed it over the years. Because as I said, you don't let go. And particularly in my business, because we don't rely on conventional ingredients. And so I am always on the lookout for the next butter substitute that will make a difference and make the product better. I'm always on the lookout for a new dark chocolate, because obviously we can't use milk chocolate, that will take the cookie up just a bit more. Is there a new extract company whose vanilla is even better than the one we've been using?
So I want to stay on the topic of business for just a few more moments. And your husband is obviously Seth Godin, and I'm curious about what has he taught you about running a business? Has he taught you anything? Has he helped you along the way?
Well, he's a wonderful, wonderful life partner. And he's incredibly supportive of what I'm doing, but I am fiercely independent. And so he does not love my logo, but I love my logo, and my customers seem to love my logo. And, just because I have the privilege of living with him, I am constantly exposed to his ideas and his brilliance, but I am very much my own person. That said, he's so kind that, one Saturday he said, so what do you want to do today? And I said, I don't know, maybe we'll deliver a wedding cake downtown. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do today. And then it turned out we got caught in the most horrible traffic. And I'm pleased to say that I am no longer delivering items in my Mini Cooper, that I now have a business that has 3 trucks that are constantly on the road and 2 drivers. But that said, we're stuck in this horrible traffic. And hoping I get to the venue in time for dessert. There's an advantage to being the dessert provider rather than the hors d'oeuvre provider. And my husband turned to me and he said, at my current billable rate and your former billable rate, this is the most expensive wedding cake delivery in history.
Oh, I love that story. Can imagine the back and forth conversation in the car as well.
But he is incredibly patient with his wacky wife.
But I love how you said that you are independent. You're strongly independent and you go after what you want. And that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, who in your life has made the greatest impact, whether it's been financially, emotionally, spiritually, any of those things?
Oh, that has to be my husband. Just because I am truly, truly fortunate that I'm on my life journey with him. And I sell wedding cakes, and I love telling couples, I wish for you what I have, that I have been married 35 years. I've known my husband for 40 years, and still, his name comes up on my cell phone. I'm like, oh, it's him. And I'm all excited.
Wow. I could ask you so many more questions, but I know you have to get home to your wonderful family. So I've got a few more, if you don't mind. And I did want to ask you before about what you've learned about creating a good team environment, about choosing the right people to join your team. And what have you learned about leadership specifically?
So I now have, I think it's 75, it may be up to 80 employees.
Wow.
And I can only tell you that I do my very best to treat them with respect and kindness. I still, it's still a business relationship, but I'll give you one example. I have 40 bakers. They bake over the course from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. There's various shifts. And if you were to come visit me in my facility and I was to take you on the production room floor, I would make a point of introducing you by name to them, to each and every employee, to say, this is Vivian, and how are you doing, Ruben? And it's not because you're going to then ask for a phone number and, invite someone to coffee, but it's because I'm saying, I see you and you matter.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I've had that advice as well. And I think that makes a good leader, makes an effective leader and they're not a boss. I've got on my wall as a reminder, there's a difference between a boss and a leader. And on it, it's depicting a boss. He's sitting on a chair and he's got the whip and he's just telling people, just do it. And on the bottom, a leader is at the front and he's showing people how to do stuff rather than just telling you to do stuff. And it's like a leader shows up with respect all the time, not just some of the time, but all the time, which I can imagine for you, Helene, with 80 people in your company, it wouldn't be an easy thing. So how do you show up every single day for all of your employees, even yourself? How do you have this bright, bubbly energy all the time?
Well, I think that I just inherently have thank you for saying, a bright, bubbly personality, but I care about people. I care about my employees. I care about my customers. Whether I'm selling you a wedding cake or a cookie, I want to delight you. I want to exceed your expectations. For my employees, yes, it's a job. It's not paradise, but I want them to feel respected, nurtured, heard, and seen.
I love it.
And what happens is that I then get that back. And that brings me joy and wants me to do more of it.
My final question for you, Helene, this is my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. It's a hypothetical one, but I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll just call it magic for the sake of argument. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
I think you've reminded me that I no longer work in our stores, but when we first opened, I did everything. And at the end of the day, I would pack up all the products we couldn't sell the next day, and I would bring them to the local homeless shelter. We now have a more sophisticated system for doing that. But I packed those items with unbelievable care. I mean, I would, put the wax paper and I'd tie a bow because I felt that the people who were receiving it also deserved some recognition and respect. And I'm very proud of that story.
Wow. Where can people find you, Helene? And some of my audience is here in Australia. I don't know if we can get any of your products. Do you ship overseas with your Mo mix at all, or is it at all?
We're not shipping internationally yet, but stay tuned. You never know.
Well, there's a connection, everyone. So whenever we get to travel overseas to New York, we get to go there. But where can people connect with you online and follow your amazing work?
We're at bythewaybakery.com.
Amazing.
All right. And it's actually btwbakery.com. And that'll give you links to all our social media and our store locations and everything else.
Or they can just type in your name, Helene Godin. You'll come up. It's not hard to find you at all. But
there is that singer in Montreal who is Helene Godin.
Helene Godin. I didn't find her. I found you straight away, like your LinkedIn profile. So, but yeah, go to btwbakery.com if you want to find you even more. But Helene Godin, thank you so much for your time today, your story and all the amazing work that you're doing and the positivity that you're putting out there into the world. So I really appreciate you coming on the Storybox podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. Be well.